Doesn't matter what he changes, because if I don't like you, I don't like you. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Apparently Ashley, and as you can see, we got a different vibe going on today. I got the twist out popping, I got a new egg chair, and so the aesthetics are just different. It's a whole vibe and I love it. So today we are talking about Married at First Sight, season 12, episode 10. And at this point in the season, we are less than 5 weeks away from decision day. And this episode was focused on the couple's meeting with Dr. Viviana, the sex expert, and they talked about all things dealing with intimacy. So it definitely made some of the couples a little uncomfortable. And so let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to talk about Chris and Paige first, just so we can get them over with, because I'm sick of them and I don't want to talk about them last because they don't deserve it. So let me set the scene for y'all. Paige is in the apartment alone, waiting for Dr. Viviana to arrive, and she is hoping that Chris attends this meeting. So it's been 2 days since their little reset. Remember, they reintroduced themselves to each other and was like, let's just start over because we just need a blank slate, right? So 2 days since that happened, and Paige has not heard from Chris. She's been calling him, it's going to voicemail, he hasn't contacted her. So it's basically not a reset, it's still Chris being Chris, which is ridiculous. And so he does end up showing up. The only good thing I would say about this man in this whole episode is I liked his hoodie. It was very bright, very colorful, it was nice, but that's all he's getting from me. So he showed up, and then Dr. Viviana arrived shortly after, and Dr. Viviana was like, I know what's been going on with y'all. I want to hear it from your perspective. And she was like, Chris, the guy who we saw when we were going through this whole process initially is not the person that we are seeing now. So what's going on? And Chris explained it as if finding out Mercedes was pregnant, remember Mercedes, his ex-fiance, put him in a depressive state, and it was just a lot to handle. And I was like, Chris, you've been acting up since Paige walked down the aisle. Like, don't try to put it on you finding out that Mercedes was pregnant. Like, no, as soon as Paige turned that corner, you was like, oh. And so Dr. Viviana asked Paige, like, okay, so like, why are you staying? Like, what's going on? And Paige was like, well, God intended me to be a supportive wife. And I was like, you know what, Paige? You know what else God intended? For you to deserve better. He would not want you to be going through this, girl. And so I just hate that she keeps thinking that she should be in this situation, even though it is detrimental to her. And I just, as we all do, want better for Paige. But at this point, I'm just like, Paige, you doing this to yourself. Like, I can't want more for you than you want for yourself, girl. So Dr. Viviana asked Paige, what do you want from this situation, like right now? And Paige was like, let's take it back to middle school. Let's be super basic. And I just want a phone call, just one phone call a day. And Chris was like, well, I want to be passionate about whatever I do, and I don't want to feel forced to do something. And I feel like that was a cop-out, him trying to say that, like, oh, I don't want to be forced to do it. Like, no, you just don't want to do it. Because, you know what was wild? When Viviana asked him, like, what he's willing to do, he was like, well, I want to go out to lunch. I want to take walks in the park and do all this stuff. And she was like, that is way more than what Paige even asked for. Like, why are you willing to do all this other stuff, but you can't even give her a basic phone call? And I was like, you know what he wants to do? He wants to do all this stuff in person, because when he's away from Paige, he doesn't want to be calling her because he's doing whatever else he wants to do on the side. And I was just like, no, this does not work like that. And so Paige was like, Chris, what are we doing? Like, what is happening? And then Dr. Viviana was like, yeah, girl, what are you doing? And I was like, get her. Like, what is happening? It was ridiculous. And so Dr. Viviana ended up leaving, and Chris and Paige decided that they need to do Bible study, because Chris was like, well, we don't have God at the center of our relationship, so let's do Bible study. And so however much time passes, and Chris comes over with chicken, and they're eating dinner. And then he was like, well, no, Paige was like, well, like, what do you have prepared? And Chris was just like, I don't have nothing prepared. And Paige was just like, okay. And so she's reading the scripture and stuff, and they're talking about it. And it seems like Chris is like, this is what we needed. We needed to pray together and read the Bible and all this other kind of stuff. So fine and dandy, sure. However, after that, Chris was like, well, I do have something to tell you. Mercedes got in this car accident a while ago and she's been afraid to drive a car and she didn't have a car and all this other stuff and blah, 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 blah. And I ended up buying her a brand new Benz. And I was like, not Chris buying Mercedes a Mercedes. Like, what? And Paige was like, okay, like, I understand that, like, you're trying to be there for your child because you don't want your child being on public transportation and stuff. But she was like, a brand new car, though? And Chris was like, well, you know, she's carrying a future king or queen, and so I want them to ride in a chariot. And I was like, this is annoying. I just feel like this is classic Chris just going back on his word, because remember back in Vegas, he was like, well, you're my wife. You're going to come before the mother of my child and all this stuff. But yet the mother of your child is receiving stuff that your wife isn't. And so here we are again, just not knowing what decision Paige is going to make, not knowing why Chris is still trying to make this work. Like, it's just ridiculous. Moral of the story, I'm over them. I want Paige to want better for herself. So moving on. Okay, on to Haley and Jacob. So Viviana went to meet with them and they told her about the whole situation when Haley went to go stay with Paige, and Jacob thought Haley was going to come back and spend the night there, and how it was a big miscommunication, misunderstanding, all of that stuff. Viviana asked them about their sex life, and Haley did say they had sex. And she had said that she did it because she's married and that's what she thought she was supposed to do. And so I guess I just misunderstood from previous episodes, because Haley had said before that she was just caught up in the whirlwind of everything, and then like reality started to set in and she was like, what am I doing? This is a lot. We're moving too fast. And so I didn't know she specifically was talking about sex when talking about that. Like, I didn't know that she had sex with him because she felt like she had to. I thought she had sex because they were drunk in Vegas and like she wanted to at that time. You know what I'm saying? But that was just kind of news to me. So Viviana suggested that they start kissing good morning and good night every day, because she was like, intimacy starts in the bedroom because you wake up next to each other. And so like, that's your first opportunity to be intimate with each other. And she was just like, do y'all want to make this work? Like, I feel like y'all are lost. Like, to help rectify that, like, this is what I suggest y'all start doing. And so immediately Haley was like, oh, like, okay, I'm gonna be a little uncomfortable with that, but like, I can try and make it work. In a future scene, they were in the bed and Jacob was like, so are we gonna like cuddle and spoon and stuff? And she was like, oh no, like immediately shut that man down. And I was just like, dang girl, like don't look out for his feelings, it's fine. So after Viviana left from meeting with them, she ended up coming back. She said she came back the next day or a few days later, but she had on the same outfit. And so I was like, girl, did you do this for TV or is it still the same day? And so she came back and she pulled out Haley's questionnaire that she filled out when she wanted to be on the show. And Haley had said in the questionnaire that she's really picky and that she picks guys apart, and then she beats herself up for picking those guys apart. And she's always like, well, I'll give the next guy a better chance because I won't be so like judgy and picky and stuff. She was saying how like, you know, Jacob is making all these changes for me. Like, he's changing the way he dresses. He's not trying to be so like 80s fanatic about everything. And Viviana was like, well, it sounds like he's, you know, trying to make you happy and like he's trying to be a good husband and stuff. And Haley is still just looking like, yeah, but it's like just not enough. And I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it. She does not like that man. She keeps saying that like, I want to make this work and I'm going to keep trying. But I promise y'all, if I was on this show, this is exactly how I would be acting if I did not like somebody. I'd be like, well, maybe he should change this or change this and change this, but it doesn't matter what he changes, because if I don't like you, I don't like you. And so this is not going to work. She's gonna say no. I think he's gonna say no too, because he's like, I'm sick of this. I'm not about to keep going through all these changes and you're not appreciating it. So this is a lost cause. I wish Haley would just be real with herself and stop trying to think that this will work out. Maybe she's doing it for TV. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but it's not gonna work. On to Clara and Ryan. So they played a little activity where they pulled some questions like out of a bowl and then asked each other those questions surrounding intimacy. And some of the questions were, how would you like to initiate romance? And Clara was like, I don't know, just do it. And I was like, girl, do you reflect on anything? Like, that's such a basic weird answer to say. How can we increase our sex life? And Clara was like, have it. That can increase it. What's your favorite position? And Ryan got so uncomfortable, and it was just very awkward to watch. Like, I just feel like they should not have this hard of a time, no pun intended, talking about intimacy and sex specifically. Like, it was just weird. So Clara did talk about how in her past relationship, I think she was with that guy for like 5 years, that they only had sex like 3 times a year, and she did not feel sexually desired by him. And so she doesn't want to be in that same or like a similar situation with Ryan, because she's like, we're doing all these other things other than like actually having sex. And I was like, that's a great thing that she should tell Ryan, because she talked about the relationship, but she didn't say specifically like, I didn't feel sexually desired. Like, she said that part in her confessional. And so I think she should tell him that, because then that might open his mind up to be like, oh, I don't want her to feel like I don't desire her sexually. Like, it's just because insert whatever reason it is for him. So I wish that they would have that conversation. So when Dr. Viviana came, she was asking them about their sex life and how that's going and all that stuff. And Clara was saying, like, you know, we do all these other things, but we don't have sex, but like those things are technically considered sex, and I'm getting frustrated, and like this is something I need to feel fulfilled in a relationship. And Brian was basically saying that he wants this foundation to be set before they take that next step. Viviana was like, you know, well, how far along is that foundation now at this point? And she was just like, I'm not just asking for me, like, I'm asking because Clara needs to know. And his response was like, you know, he doesn't want to make it like a checkbox or like a 90-day rule type of thing. Like, okay, once we're married for this amount of time, then we'll have sex. He wants it to happen organically and naturally and stuff like that. But like, from the sounds of what Clara's been saying, it sounds like it could have already naturally happened, but like Ryan is the one who always pumps the brakes on it. And so I really don't know what his thought process is with it, but Viviana made a good point when she was talking to Clara alone. She was like, do you think he's being truthful about being a virgin or not? And Clara was like, oh, I did not think about that. And honestly, I hadn't thought about that either, because if y'all have watched previous seasons, there was a girl named Iris who was on this show, and she was a virgin, and she got really uncomfortable when talking about intimacy and stuff. And that's very similar to how Ryan's acting. Clara did say that he has been honest about everything, and he has said out his mouth that he's had sex before, so she believes him. But Viviana saying that was a good point, because I'm just like, oh, he might be a virgin, and that's why he's so like squeamy about talking about it and stuff. And like, maybe that's why he's never said he loves anyone. So I don't know. Clara was also super vulnerable during the conversation with Viviana, because she talked about how sex for her has never been this emotional thing. Like, it's always just, it is what it is, and she has never experienced that. Ryan is looking for that emotional connection, and she is afraid she won't be able to provide that for him. In the sneak peek for next week, that's another tongue twister. I need to find a way to say that. So for next week's preview, Clara said, if you don't say I love you in 6 months, then I'm gone. And so who knows, like, the context of why she said that. Like, you know, editing is a thing, but I'm interested to see why she said that and how Ryan will respond, because this girl's frustrated, and like, rightfully so, I feel like, because for this experiment, we only have 8 weeks. And so I just feel like something needs to happen between them, or this might blow up in their face. Next up is Virginia and Erik. So last week I called him weird, but you know what I've realized for this week? I don't like him. I don't like Erik. I don't like how he talks to her. I don't like how his actions and his words are incongruent. I don't like how he thinks he's so open-minded, but yet he's really not. I just don't like him. He makes my skin crawl, and that really showed in this episode. So with them, they started out talking about Virginia's guy friends again, because they were talking about communicating with guy friends and stuff. She was talking about texting them or liking their pictures on social media or something like that. I can't remember how the conversation started. And Erik was saying, like, you know, if it's those 2 guy friends that I met, that's fine. But like, other ones I don't know about. Like, are they your exes and all this stuff? And I don't think she explicitly said they were her exes, but she like alluded to the fact that like she's friends with her exes and stuff. And so she was just like, I don't see what the problem is. And she was like, I don't know if I should be annoyed about this or if I should like fight this battle or not. And in her confessional, she talked about how they don't have arguments essentially, or they kind of like avoid tough conversations because they like being in their good space. And so they don't want to ruin it. And I'm like, girl, everybody enjoys being in their good space. Like, you can't just avoid the difficult conversations though. Like, this is gonna blow up in your face. Like, y'all gonna say yes on decision day, and then 2 weeks later, y'all gonna be like, this was stupid, because like y'all never had the conversations that y'all needed to have. And so it just made me think like, I'm glad I'm not in a situation where I have to worry about like my significant other being friends with exes, or like me being friends with exes. Like, we just both happen to be individuals who don't really communicate with exes, because that is just a difficult conversation, because you got to see where the other person's coming from and all this other stuff. A whole bunch of understanding has to take place, or like talking about insecurities and all this stuff. And so I'm just glad that I don't have to deal with that. Also, can we talk about why their dog bed was in the kitchen? That's nasty, white people. Anyway, Viviana came to talk to them, and they were saying that they've been doing great. Like, they were instantly attracted to each other, all this stuff. And Virginia had said that they do have differing, they have different views. I think Erik said it actually. One of them said they have different views on life, like alluding to like politics and stuff like that. Because I don't know if y'all remember, but Virginia had said that her sister is a lesbian. Virginia is just very open-minded in general, whereas Erik is very conservative. He has very conservative views. And it was a very weird exchange about like, we're just never going to change each other's views. That's fine. But like, I respect his views. But like, I feel like they as in Erik, say these things, but they don't mean it. Like, it just doesn't feel genuine. And Viviana was even like, is it to the point where like, when you have kids, how would you feel if your child was exposed to like these opposing views essentially? And they were both like, no, like it's fine. Like, we'll let them decide how they want to live their life, like all this stuff or whatever. But it just didn't feel real to me. It just felt very much like, I'm supposed to be open-minded as a human, and so therefore I will be open-minded. But like, he don't really feel that way. It was just weird. So when Viviana talked about kids, Erik had said like, I don't even know if Virginia wants kids. And if she doesn't want them, then I'm done. And I was just like, here he go again, like my way or the highway. And Virginia was like, well, I had said that if my husband wants kids, then we'll talk about it. And he was like, talk about it. And it's just like, like your body language is horrible. Like, I just be picking him apart. Like, I don't like him. And she's just like, yeah, like, I don't want them right now. And he's like, I'm not going to wait another 10 years to have kids and all this stuff. And I'm just like, Erik, you can leave now. Okay. Like, just say you don't want to continue this with her. Cause like, you don't like her. You think you like her, but you don't like her. He's that person who's going to try and change her to fit his mold. But like, he doesn't actually like her for who she is in this moment. I always say that if your significant other never changes from this day forward, they remain the person they are, would you be happy with them? And if there's a whole list of things you would change, then like, you need to reevaluate and reconsider. They did do an activity later where they had to share information about themselves for like certain increments of time. And so like the timer was set for like 5 minutes, and Virginia would talk and then Erik couldn't interrupt, and vice versa. And so Virginia talked about her family dynamic and growing up, and how her parents were divorced, and how her dad was out of her life for a little bit. And the reason she's iffy about having kids is because she doesn't want her kids to go through that, which is understandable. And Erik talked about how he's been cheated on in almost every relationship he's been in. And so he's like, it's not that I don't trust you, I just don't trust other people, and how that's always in the back of his head. And so very good conversation between them, very good insight for the both of them. But again, I just feel like that information was put on the table, but no one's going to do anything with it. Like, I would hope that Erik would hear Virginia's story and then understand more about why she's iffy about kids. But I still feel like he's going to be like, no, girl, like, if you don't want them, then bye, which is his right to do. But it's just like, is this a marriage or not? Like, you gonna be understanding or not? Y'all gonna communicate or not? All right, last is Briana and Vincent, my favorites. So not much went on with them drama-wise in this episode. Viviana came to visit them. They talked about the whole Champagne Vinny story and explaining how he was embarrassed and all this stuff. And he was like, it was funny because he had said like, you know, I don't want her to talk to me like I'm a 7-year-old, like I'm not delicate. And I was like, roll the clip back from when you just said last week that you talk to her delicate, so you want her to talk to you delicately. And I was like, all right, Vinny. But Viviana said like, you know, this is coming from a good place because you really like her and you want her to really like you. And so when life gets in the way, you freak out because you don't want her to see you in a certain light. And I was like, relatable content, Viviana, because that was literally me when me and Steven first got together. Because I was like, here's this amazing man, like literally more than I could ask for. And I don't know where it came from, but I was just so like freaking out about everything when we first got together, because I was like, he's gonna judge me for this, and like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess, I'm crazy, like I can't do this way. And again, super illogical, but I had to remember who the I was and be like, girl, get it together. Like, he likes you for you. Like, stop thinking that you have to put yourself on this unrealistic pedestal when like we're all human, we're flawed, like it's fine. And so Viviana was saying that like, Vinny, you're not perfect, like you're going to mess up, like it's fine. And so I was just like, you can step off of my toes, Viviana, that's fine. Briana had said the cutest thing in response to Vinny saying that. She was like, you don't have to try to impress me because you being yourself impresses me. And I was like, oh, my heart, why are y'all so cute? I just love it. And so later in the episode, they played a game. What did they play? Like Truth or Dare or something like that, where they had to like blindfold each other and then like answer a question truthfully or do a dare. Like he was picking her nose and stuff. It was nasty. I was like, don't pick my nose. Well, and it was eating whipped cream on cheese. I was like, I'm not playing this game. I didn't like that. But it was cute because they were just getting to know each other on a different level. So they're adorable as always. All right, y'all, that wraps up my review of Married at First Sight, season 12, episode 10. I hope y'all enjoyed my new aesthetic. I think I'm gonna film here from now on just because I love this little space. If you have any comments, drop them below. Let's chit chat about what happened in this week's episode. Also, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see y'all next week. Bye. Jacob thought Haley was gonna come back and how it was just a big miscommunication, misunderstanding, all of that stuff. Ooh, am I about to sneeze?